everyone, and welcome back to the PRC IAPN Roundtable discussion. And as always, basically, Edward and myself are your hosts tonight. Now, we're going to be expecting a couple other people dropping in with us tonight. Not sure that's going to be happening because we understand that we came up with the idea to get back into this kind of last minute last night. And so, if we don't wind up with a roundtable discussion tonight, what we're going to do is we'll just cover a few talking points and then set things up for next week. And just want to let people know that we are continuing with the roundtable discussion as what we had been doing. So uh, we'll just cover a few points here, and we'll wait and see if we get a couple of people stopping in. Now, uh, with what we've got a lot of good things going on here at IAPN Radio, and plus Ed himself has, well, basically he's just got done publishing his new book, and he's also working on number two as we speak. Um, and so basically, what I think we're just going to cover a few points and just wait and see what happens tonight. Uh, Ev, you want to just kind of kick things off? Go ahead.
All right, thanks, Mark. Well, okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the PRC IAPN Roundtable. I know we're short-staffed today, but because this was a last-minute thing. Tonight's topic, we were going to cover a little bit on polytheism versus monotheism and creation stories based upon it. This was a topic we were intending on discussing. In general, we have to first define what polytheism and monotheism are. Monotheism is the belief in one primary deity, or one deical force, that there's no other deities but one. Now, in monotheistic society, which is there are several religions that claim monotheism that aren't actually monotheistic. And this is something that we're going to clarify within Christianity and Pagan and Judaism, as well as Islam. All three are alleged monotheistic religions. However, within there are actually not monotheistic. We do have somebody viewing the room right now, which is good to see. Welcome, viewer. Monotheism is the belief in one God, or one primary God. In polytheism, there's a belief in multiple deical figures. However, there is also a primary overseeing God in almost all polytheistic beliefs as well. Okay. For example, we're just citing the example of the Norse mythology, which you've recently done some research on yourself, Earl. I know
Correct.
that.
Yep.
They have in the Norse mythology the All-Father, Odin, who actually was created by Billy and Bay, and all three of them would work together. So there was a triune or trinity in all three of them. Billy, Bay, and Odin created, which were sons of Besla and Bel.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There was
Now, the one thing that people kind of get confused on is I hear so many stories that people are they basically the correlation between Odin and Loki is that people have got the wrong information, and basically they're calling father and son. However, Loki was born by different parents, and so Odin and Loki were like brothers, actually.
they were actually stepbrothers.
Okay.
Let's clarify that. In Norse mythology, Odin and Loki were actually stepbrothers, much like Zeus and Hades were
Right.
stepbrothers.
exactly.
um, in the Greek pantheon. And then you have the Roman pantheon, you have another set of brothers in the Roman pantheon as well. And that happens to be Romulus and Remus as the founding twins of founded Rome. They were sons of Mars and I can't remember who else.
right.
In my head.
Now, the only sect that I did not get into that I forgot to cover in this uh, was the similarities with the Celtic gods.
Celtic gods, you had several. The Celtic gods are kind of mixed up in that regard. There's not a set of divine twins in the Celtic mythology,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and they're a uniform pantheon. Is what they are. They're pantheistic. Okay. Um, in Now there's a difference between polytheism, pantheism, and monotheism. Like I said, monotheism is the belief in one God.
Right.
Polytheism is the belief in multiple gods. Pantheism is a belief in a single grouping of gods, often defined by ethnic or racial um, locations.
Okay.
Okay,
So basically, what it boils down to with the pantheon is that the between the Greek and the Roman gods, they consider themselves to be the one main group.
they're pantheists.
Yep.
Okay, um, now to clarify what I said earlier about monotheism, in monotheism there is a triune representation. Then the creative forces, okay, the one single God, right, created man. However, he was co-created. He co-created man. According to the count list of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right?
Right.
A triune. In the Jewish, right? There's the Shekinah, the angels, right, or the Sephirim, or Nephilim rather, and the God head. Okay, there's another triune there. There's multiple triunes within things. So each one, and the Shekinah is actually a female aspect, by the way.
Yep.
And now in paganism, we borrow a polytheistic viewpoint. Okay,
Yep.
but what we do is we represent by archetypal principles. Okay, we have multiple gods in paganism. We borrow from multiple pantheons. We borrow from the Greek. We borrow from the Roman. We borrow from the Norse. We borrow from the Egyptian. You know, we borrow from the Celtic. Okay. Now each of these are archetypal principles. Okay. We in the pagan community believe in a divine creative force, a single divine creative force. Now, a single divine creative force, right,
Right.
does not have a finite value to it. We do not put finite values on it because it's infinite. We see that in nature, because we are nature based or agrarian based, thus the term pagan, which comes from earth based or earth dweller, right?
Right.
We see in nature that there is a masculine and feminine force that has to be cooperative and work together in order for. Hello, Greg. Good to see you. Um, in order for things to work out to where creation to occur. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, an animist an animistic path, Greg, you're referring to? And the path of an animistic belief is a belief in all things have a spirit. Okay, that everything has a spirit, and, and everything is possessed with a spirit or soul. Now I'm going to say that now we just had discussion on spirit and soul in the past, and I'll tell you right now that the spirit and soul are actually different animals.
Uh-huh. And yeah, I'm gonna put a disclaimer in here. When we had that discussion, the universe basically intervened on us that night and basically said that we were getting too close to something, and basically we got shut down.
Yeah, so we're not going to touch on that, but animism is a belief that all things possess a spirit. Okay, they are separate from a polytheistic or a monotheistic viewpoint. Totally separate entities. Okay,
Hmm.
in the monotheistic viewpoint, like I said, there's one divine creative force called God, if you will, by some or whatever you want to call it. Now, some call it the creator, some call it God. Some even assume that Jesus was is the creator or co-creator.
Right.
Well, creator and creatrix is in everything. That's a more animistic approach, yes. But that's an aspect of seeing that there is a divine and masculine, divine feminine principle in between. There, and this is something that's seen in nature. It's something we observe in nature. Um, but when we're discussing polytheism or multi-god principles are based. I star in.
Oh, okay. There she is. Got her. Nope. Oh, I got her.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Doing good, there, sir.
Um, anyway, we were discussing polytheism versus monotheism and what the differences and similarities are. And the fact is that there is a actual in monotheistic religion there is actually a polytheistic viewpoint that most people do not recognize, and that's in the triune aspect. Okay,
Okay.
um, and we were just discussing how the creation stories in monotheism versus polytheism are similar in a lot of ways. That there's normally one divine head God, and then on polytheism there's multiple gods that are under gods or sub gods to in the polytheistic belief and tradition. Now, the thing about it is, in monotheism you have the same principle. You have a principal primary God, and then you have secondary creator forces. Some believe Jesus was a creative force, or the Son of God was a creative force. Some believe that the Shekinah in Judaism was the second creator. Okay, the Holy Spirit is a third creative force. Angels are a creative force. They had something to do with the creation too. Now, this is in monotheistic belief aspect. A lot of people aren't aware of that. So this is what we're discussing right now. So we're discussing creation stories and how what polytheism is actually, which is a belief in multiple deities, but there are archetypal principles. I wanted to specify that again because, and if you have any comments, please speak up, Star.
Um, I this is a funny topic to me because from many pagan perspectives, there are many facets of this and many versions of what they think it is. So I tend to kind of keep a lot of my opinions about that to myself, because it doesn't always fall in line with a lot of what people believe, because I am not in any way Christian. I you know so I am, even though I grew up and I was brought up in that. I am so far removed from that, so I choose not to. Not even choosing. It's just things have to make logical sense in my head, and if it's not logical, I'm not. To me, it's all mythology. So
Right.
I kind of stick with what I see as realistic and makes sense in my head. So
You can blame me for this topic tonight. I was the one who wanted to cover it because I recently did a write up on creation stories
right,
and the similarities and differences of uh, a lot of the different gods and goddesses. So, uh, yeah, you got me to blame for this one.
okay,
Within paganism, though, we do have one specific thing that all pagans do believe in.
wishes.
All pagans believe there's divine creative force. However, unlike Christianity, unlike certain other even polytheistic religions, we do not personify that creation. We recognize it as existing, but we do not put finite limits on it or personify it because we feel that the creation is infinite and beyond our comprehension and understanding.
Right.
That, that's a common thing within modern paganism that you'll find as a common belief factor. Now, however, we do borrow polytheistic viewpoints and pantheism, particularly, to represent archetypal principles. Okay, like for example, if I was looking for justice to represent justice, for example, I'm going to use this from the, this is my normal go-to. Okay, and because I follow a Norse pantheon myself personally, right? I would look at the archetypal principles behind Tyr and Freya, okay, to represent that particular archetype or that particular aspect. Now, borrowing that archetype is nothing more than, to me, than trying to bring in that aspect into myself and understanding of that's what I'm seeking. Okay, this is why we borrow from other pantheons and other religions those principles and those archetypal premises to represent those certain values that we're looking for to develop within ourselves. We like when we're doing healing rituals and stuff like that, right? We might use, you might use the Roman healing, Asclepius, right? And you might use the Roman Minerva to represent healing, okay? Or you might use Asclepius and Selene, the moon goddess. You might use, in Greek, it's also Asclepius, but a different spelling. And you might use, say, Athena or Demeter, as the female principle behind it. But what you're really doing is you're looking at that from a creative aspect of what you need a masculine and feminine female, male and female to create that aspect, right? All things within nature show us that it takes a male and a female for creation to occur. So
Yeah.
what we are doing is we're borrowing that same premise to represent each of those individual aspects, whether it be healing, whether it be, like I said, justice, with Tyr and Freya, for example, right? Um, if you want, say, justice with Roman, you want to look at Minerva, right, which is the equivalent of Athena, right? And you might want to look at Mars, or you might want to look at Apollo. Either way, right? Because each one represents that particular aspect of what we're looking for. You might go into the Chinese and you can use other ones like Kuan Yin, right? To get
Right.
for the female and the Durga for the masculine, right? You might want to go if you're looking at Hindu. You might want to borrow. You might be borrowing the same at the archetypal principles, and like I said, it's borrowing archetypal principles, and that's what people don't understand about paganism. We're really not worshiping those particular deities. We're recognizing their archetypal principle and what they represented to the cultures they were, part of. You know, in order to bring upon that energy or direction that we're looking for within our own beliefs to build onto that. Are we in agreement on this, or
Um, Parts of it. I will kind of parts of it. Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to your teachings, there, Star, uh, I mean, do you present it in a similar way, or do you take a completely different approach?
I kind of take a slightly different approach because, in a way, we kind of, if you look at, okay, just using the Christians as an example, they have their Jesus and God or whoever else that they have as they that they worship or work with. And they call them those beings or the angels if they work with angels, which a lot of them don't. They stick with Jesus or whomever, and they worship and they do offerings and they pray and all the other things that they do. They don't see it as an aspect of themselves, and because I guess I came from more of a educational background with it rather than just the mythology of it. To a lot of people, I don't see them as aspects. Yes, we can pull in aspects of what their characters were like, but I see them as individual gods and goddesses because of the fact that these were gods and goddesses that people were naming and having before we even knew each other existed. Since the beginning of time almost. And they had, the god or the goddess of the grain or the healing or the different things. And um, to them, it was not an aspect, it was actually this particular god or
well,
goddess.
this is something I'm not disagreeing with you
Right.
on. Okay, as I was saying, like you take the Hindu or you take the Buddhist, for
Mm-hmm.
example, Hindu and Buddhist gods and goddesses, especially Buddhists, right, and Taoists, are entirely philosophical gods and goddesses. They are not actual physical gods and goddesses or physical mythological beings.
Right.
They are strictly philosophical gods and goddesses. They're based entirely off philosophy.
Right. Right. For the
Okay.
Taoism. For the Hinduism, no. They actually sees them
Well,
as those characters.
yeah, if you're looking
Yeah.
at the Hindu, you're looking at Vishnu, Krishna, which are the primaries, but they have their Saktis, okay, which are their secondary and third levels of there, but they also have other ones in there that are strictly philosophical. There's 379 gods and goddesses in Hinduism.
Right. And honestly speaking, from the people that I do know who work with them and who are Hindu themselves, they see them as not aspects or anything like that. They actually see them as these individual gods and goddesses.
Well, yes, so
You
yes,
know,
it's representative, but they are also philosophical gods and goddesses.
I mean,
They represent philosophical forces.
we can take all of them and work with them philosophically, but I know I see it that way too, the same way as the Hindus. And because when I teach it, I simply tell them to learn things from a broad perspective and then make up their own decision. I'm not telling them what to believe or choose to believe or however they take it. So, and I refuse to have them just learn the Roman or the Norse or different pantheons, I hand them this huge book called the Encyclopedia of Spirits, and I tell them there are thousands of different deities around the world.
And
Open the
it's,
book, and I have them learn, and by the end of the year, each year, they know at least 200 gods and goddesses. They
yeah,
begin to learn about them and all the aspects of them and all the things that they work with for their different tribes. So by the time they finish with us, they're choosing different deities from around the world that has called out to them. Um,
I
you
don't
know,
find, I don't find anything wrong in that. Believe me, Star. I'm 100% behind you on
yeah,
that.
no, there's nothing wrong or right about any of what
Yeah,
anybody's
yeah.
doing.
What
It's just I think we all kind of come from different
I'm saying,
perspectives
I'm
with it.
behind you on that aspect because of the fact that it's, and what we're trying to do is separate what polytheism is versus monotheism in this regard. Like all the religions, the tribal religions that are animistic with a chthonic god and god, a chthonic god or a chthonic goddess, but no other gods and goddesses represented.
Right,
Okay,
right, because they
they're
choose to believe that there's only one.
yeah, they're considered monotheistic in that approach.
Right.
I was saying earlier that Christianity, however, Judaism and Islam, right, are actually not monotheistic. Though they
Judaism and which
claim
one?
Islam. They are not monotheistic, though they claim monotheism.
Mm, well, yeah. You can kind of see it that way, although I have not really studied them too much. Um, but
Because each of them have a triunal or three develop. You know, I studied a lot of theology. You know,
mm,
I just recently did a whole
right, right.
complete world. Recently did a complete world gods and goddesses of the world part of my website.
Okay, now
Entire pantheon. What's that, Earl?
question here. Now, where would the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses fall into this?
Um,
Ancient Egyptian is strictly polytheistic.
See,
It's
that's what
strictly
I
polytheistic.
mean. To a lot of them, when I speak with the actual people from there that have been
Hmm.
working with different gods and goddesses, they don't see it that way. So I think a lot of times we sit back from an outside point of view and decide from that outside point of view what they're actually doing. And
Hmm.
I don't think we should do that. I think we should take it from their perspectives.
Many of
So
Right.
them have such a
the
in the
few that
poly.
the few that I do know that came from Egypt, born, raised all their lives, their parents and going back, that do work with pantheons from that, um, they take it as straight up who they are and individually so. They do not see it as philosophically or anything like that. So I can't take that away from them when this is their thing.
Right.
No,
Because to
honestly,
me that's kind of similar to the Romans looking at the Druids over
yeah,
there and saying this is what they're doing from observation. And I
I
don't want to
didn't.
do that with anyone's,
I did not
you
say
know.
they're. I did not say they're not. I did not say they're. I said they're polytheistic, meaning they have multiple gods.
Right. No, no, no. I
Right.
understand that part, but
Okay,
I thought you said some another part. Never mind.
no,
Never mind.
no, no. They have multiple gods. They're multiple.
Yeah, they do.
The
Yeah,
Egyptians are
Hmm.
polytheistic,
very much so.
very much so. As a matter of fact, they have within amongst the Egyptians of roughly around 97 different gods.
Right. And in
From the ancient Egyptian
if you
pantheon.
study them around the world and the different tribes around the world, they have many, like three, 400 of each ones, and they individually see them as gods or goddesses of the different things,
Right,
and
but
it works for them, you know. So I tend to kind of run with them like that. If they
Okay.
see it that way and it's theirs, I work with it from there.
Now, the question I've always had is with the ancient Egyptian gods. Now, was there any resemblance or correlation to like the Toltecs or Mayans? Is there's so much similar markings
Yeah,
and
yeah.
writing?
Um,
okay,
they seem to have similarities, but they're not,
they're not
because
similar.
the Aztecs, the Incas, the Aztecs, the Incas,
The Miztec,
most of them were more the Caribbean islands,
Hmm.
and certain islands that I'm descendants from that, according to what they say with Trinidad and Tobago, the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans. We are supposed to be descendants of that. And if you saw pictures of my great grandmother in the museum in Trinidad and Tobago, you would swear it was me from years ago, and she was Asian, kind of, sort of, but not. So, you know, it's all. I think it's all from perspectives.
Do you want me to handle this a little bit too?
Say
Okay,
again?
so I'm going to handle this a little bit different from a historical side.
Right.
Okay. Now, the ancient Toltec, Miztec, Aztec, and Mayan, okay, civilization existed pre-Egypt,
Yeah.
roughly around maybe 3,000 years prior to Egyptian civilization. Okay.
Okay.
Egyptian civilization has, people assume there's a similarity because of the pyramid building aspects, as well as the fact is that there's a pyramid building aspect, and there's also the fact is that they use petroglyphs or pictoglyphs.
I think outside people do, but if you study it really from the way I was coming with it, I did not see the similarities for the pyramid part, because the pyramids look slightly different to me.
Oh, they're totally different in structure.
They're very different, and how they are structured and how they're built.
And if you look at pyramids that exist other than those two civilizations,
Right.
there's actually pyramids in two other civilizations,
Right.
and one just happens to be in the Celtic. There's
Some have heard, yeah.
The Celtic, and also in the Asian. In certain Asian civilizations, the pyramids existed even in there. And pyramids were burial tombs, what they were used for.
Right.
They were used as megaliths, as a burial tomb and megalith, to represent hierarchy and royal figures, primarily. So in each of those cultures, they had a similar practice, yes, of building pyramids. But in the aspect of them actually being, one partaken of another one, no. There's 3,000 years difference between the Aztec, Miztec, Mayan, and Toltec,
and the Incas, yeah,
and the Egyptian. There's 3,000 years difference between them.
Right, and the ones in the islands were older than.
The island ones, Trinidad, Tobago, and the Isle of Man. I can't think of the other place too. There's so many similarities even in their things to Miztec and Aztec. There was possibility of the island nations were.
What they speculated on was that they were either given certain knowledges that were very similar, or something to the effect, because their pyramids were similar but yet so different.
Right.
There's a lot there that I'm still going through and I'm still understanding even years later. But a lot of it is a lot of misconceptions, a lot of like looking at it from the outside, like the Romans with the Druids, and observing things and saying things that they really did not know anything about. So it's not always the best to just observe from afar and say, this is what I'm seeing, but not really knowing what's really going on. So
would they be under a pantheistic?
They were very polytheistic, very much so.
Polytheistic, okay.
Yeah, they had different gods and goddesses, and they worshipped them as separate beings, each of them. And
what is defined as pantheism, and this is where you're confusing the two words. Pantheistic means basically having a single cultural entity or grouping. Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I goofed on that one.
Polytheism is a belief in multiple gods. You notice there's a difference between the cultural side and the multiple.
Right.
Yeah, I goofed on that one.
Okay. And that's what I'm going to clarify that for everybody's benefit too.
Right. And for me, which is when I teach my students, I say I present to them all the facts of different things, and then I tell them, like I did with university, I want them to go and study it themselves like that, so they could make their own decisions individually what it is for them, because I'm not making that decision for them. For me personally, I believe in them all individually.
Right. And that's a matter of,
And I work with them. I don't use
yeah,
them. I work with
yeah,
them,
yeah.
and um, it's
I
kind of
know,
a reciprocal form of worship, because it's
right.
you know,
Which is why I was talking about archetypal in that regard.
right,
Okay, you work with the deities. Likewise, so do I. Okay,
right,
but I work with them. That's what I'm referring to as archetypal principles. If you take Carl Jung's archetype, and you study a little bit of Jung, usually an archetype basically is you work within the boundaries of culture or whatever else, right? To represent, bring about within yourself and without yourself those aspects of those things you're working with. You're not using them, like you said, you're not using the god and goddess.
right. You're working with them,
You're
and they
working
are
with
working
them,
with you. Yeah,
and they're working with you
yeah,
in unison.
yeah.
Correct.
And so it there has to be, and just the same way that you would work with anyone else in the human being world, you introduce yourself, you get to know them, they get to know you, because you're not going to go up to a stranger and go, can you work with me or lend me some money right now? You're not going to do that, because
Right,
they'll be like, who the hell are you? I
right.
don't even know you. So it's the same thing. You have to get to know them. You have to, on your own, not from books only, because
And build a relationship, a personal
exactly,
relationship
exactly. You build
with
a
the individual.
relationship with them and it works. And they do help you, and vice versa, because we are helping them in the sense of bringing them back to life, in the sense of a lot of them, if you study a lot of them from around the world, they have not had their names mentioned in eons, because everybody's going with the regular ones, the Greek, the Romans, and the Celtic ones or whatever. And they're forgetting that there's a millennia of them around the world. So
Right.
when you work with them and you get to know them, they're so happy that people are recognizing them in this modern time, that they really help you a lot,
Oh, gotcha.
a
Oh yeah.
lot, yeah.
Well,
And they're happy to work with you, and get to know you and everything. But and also, and this is one of the books that I was trying to work on, which is a lot of work. But I do believe reading or having people tell you little aspects of the different gods and goddesses, like even in the book, the Encyclopedia of Spirits, they give you a breakdown. You then work with them individually and get to know them, because you will learn things about them that is not written in any books.
oh yeah,
That
exactly.
is, yeah, that is not, because it's
Well,
kind of like it's kind of like watching people that do Hecate or Hades or whatever, and none of them really know them. They think they're working with them, but they're all doing the exact same things and all saying the exact same, we carrying the same exact thing, and nobody's really getting to know them and journey with them individually and get to know them. And I find that kind of wrong. That's just me.
one of the things I recommend, one of the things I recommend to everybody, okay, and this is the honest truth here. Don't just just because it's a bad thing to do. Like I'm going to be a Celtic witch, therefore I have to work with the Celtic pantheon. Therefore, I'm only going to study the Celtic pantheon.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be a Norse. I'm going to be a Sator. I want to be a Sator, so I'm going to study only the Norse. Right. The point of the matter is, and then not study them, not build a relationship with them because you're not building a relationship. You're not understanding them.
Nope, you don't. You
One
just
of the things that I will highly recommend is, first of all, research the culture of the time period that they were worshipped in. Thoroughly research their culture. Research and get the background and research on the cultures that are surrounding them. Why were these gods developed? Who? Why were they created? Why are they there? Why are
right.
they worshipped? Get to know these deities inside and out.
And
You know,
do your own private journey, so you can learn things that's not in books.
Right,
not in
exactly.
all of those things. So you can get to know them, so you can speak about them in a way that no one else can, because it's not in any books. It's what you're learning from them individually.
Right, but even before that, understand the culture they came from. Research the culture they came from, especially if you're going to think. I highly recommend just taking a book like you said, the Book of Spirit, the Encyclopedia of Spirit. I have the Encyclopedia of God by, which is by, I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but the Encyclopedia of God goes over each of the gods in world pantheon and
Right.
says whether they're chthonic, whether they're, what their basic representations are, and so forth.
Yeah. Yes.
He
That,
did a
that
lot of
that's
homework.
like that's pretty much just similar to Judica's,
Yeah,
and there are they're over like, I don't know, 10,000 of them in her book,
right. And
Judica's.
but the thing about it is, when you take those books like Judica's book, like this other one I was telling you that I used to initiate my research. Now, mind you, I just use it to initiate my research because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
further go into details by going researching actually the historical records and everything else, all the sacred texts and everything else. You have to grasp the actual thinking of the culture you're working with.
Right.
You have to know what culture you're working with. You can't just jump into this. And this is for you new ones out there that don't know. Okay,
Yep.
you
Okay. I'll
can't.
tell you what. We're gonna take a quick time out.
Uh,
Is I meant to do this a lot earlier, but we lost track of time.
Okay.
We're gonna take a quick station break for our sponsor, and then station identification. We're gonna be right back. Don't go nowhere. We still got a lot more to cover.
Sister Moon, Apothecary and More is a collaboration of local island witches bringing you handcrafted tools for ritual, amazing apothecary, custom vinyl work, merchandise, and so much more. But we are not just an online store. We are a sisterhood, a platform, and a voice for everything that is magical. Join us for our famous Tarot Tuesdays from 11 to 4 Eastern Standard Time for a discounted reading with our amazing in-house intuitive reader and priestess, Wolf Spirit Energy, Beverly Oberlin. You can find us on Facebook at Sister Moon Store or on the web at sistermoon.shop. So fly on over and stop in for a spell.
We back off.
All right, we're back with the roundtable discussion, and this has been a really interesting discussion that I'm really happy about. This is I'm even learning a few things that I was not even aware of. So this is educational for me. So I appreciate it. All right, keep on going there, Ed.
As I was saying, though, do your homework. Each culture has an individual gather, a unification that created a culture or tribe. So you want to do your homework on that culture. If you're gonna emulate that culture, do your homework on it. I think Star will totally agree with me on that.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Doing your homework, and also when you are going through all your researches on the different gods and goddesses, some of them may, in my head, a lot of them may reach out to you. And I believe some of them that reach out to you are from many times in your past where you've lived another lifetime and you've worked with them. So some of it might be from your past culture. So it's something that learning about that culture, as Ed was saying, you may find that you may recognize certain things about that culture that you may have, gee, I was in that culture before in another lifetime, or different things like that. It's amazing and very helpful.
Yep, and it goes back to what you were saying about if you reach out to them to give them the recognition that they may not have had since their time, that they are very appreciative of that.
Mm,
And as long as you're recognizing them in the most positive way possible, then
They appreciate that
Yeah.
because unfortunately, missionaries have taken away a lot of those deities from tribes, and when they've allowed it to take over and they become just strictly Christian or whatever. And it's kind of sad to watch a lot of that happen where they've lost that culture, they've lost all those deities, and it sets them aside and they're no longer called upon.
Right. Which is unfortunate too, because
Yeah.
granted, I know that history didn't. When I was in school, history did not teach us about all about everything about ancient Egypt, the Mayans, all the Aztecs. Uh, I mean, I do remember touching upon um, Genghis Khan uh, back in the Mongols, and but nothing else ever got taught.
That's sad. Being, between England and Canada, we were taught that in grade school and in high school. So by the time I got to university, I was doing these other things that was more on certain levels because I had already began a lot of studies with it in grade and high school. And it's a shame that now they're trying to take away history and just strictly give you mythology of a different type, that which a lot of mythology is not true. So, or they give you their version of mythology because that's what they want you to take on, and they're rewriting history, and that's a shame.
George Santayana said it the best.
Huh?
George Santayana said it the best. Those who do not remember history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, until they learn it.
Okay? And unfortunately, yes, you lose a lot of education and thing. You and I were fortunate, Star.
Yeah.
I grew up in England as a child too.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
you learn those things. It's part of what you're taught to do
Our
from very young.
our
And
curriculum,
some things, yes, some things that people have to wait till they go to college here for, which I'm
right,
like, really? That's when they're introducing it to them, because we were taught it from very young,
right.
and we were talking about it. Yeah.
Our curriculum was quite advanced.
Yeah, but we didn't see it as advanced. We just
Right.
thought of it as if
It was
everybody
normal.
was doing it, then that's what we were doing.
Yeah, but the advantage of it for us, for those of us educated in England and the English school system, right, is that it was normal for us, but it gave us the insight to know how to do research at an early age.
Right,
We did
right.
not stop. Neither one of you or I don't ever stop researching, do we?
No, we don't. I'm always researching and I'm always finding out new things and I'm always learning new things every day. And you could learn something new from a new person who's now coming in because they may have studied
Mhm.
something or they came from that culture.
Right.
As
By
much
all
as I
means.
studied, it was nice hearing people who from those countries tell you
Oh yeah,
this, and back it up what you've studied and all the different things. So it's kind of cool.
please, yeah. If you're from another culture or anything else like that, be sure to comment on our thing. Tell us a little bit about your culture. We'll be happy to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, because the fact that the more we know, the better off we are.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
It's just like some of the conversations that I've had with authors as of late. In fact, I just had good conversations with a couple of authors who come from the Caribbean and New Orleans area, and they were introducing me to a totally different type of religion that I never even knew about. That is highly practiced there in New Orleans. Uh,
Voodoo,
the
Juju, and Santeria.
and in no, there's also another one, Albea.
Obey, yeah, which is
Obia,
one.
Obia,
Obia.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Obia. Yeah, I grew up with that. A lot of it
Yeah.
from there, and the many insights and the zombie and the zombies and all the different things that you learn. You just didn't realize that you were knowing all these things until you get, people as an adult, people ask you certain things. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I remember doing that or seeing that. Yeah, traveling is a big deal. Traveling, and you learn a lot.
Yep. Um, that's the reason why. That's the reason why I wanted to get back to doing these roundtable sessions, because it's allowing us to cover topics that we may not have known about or even learned about, and it's good for us to put this out for everybody as a teaching tool.
I apologize for the hiatus, but life got in the way for me.
Yeah, yeah. But Obia is one of those that are along the lines of voodoo. Obia is actually more like an oral kind of a tradition, and very little books are written about it, and if they are, they're very sketchy.
Yeah, they are extremely sketchy, and the thing about it is because it's basically off the Fan and Bon and Benin area that Orbia came from.
The what?
Fan, Benin, and Bon area of Africa is where originally it stemmed from.
What, Obia?
Yeah,
Mm,
I did some serious research on that recently, including sacred texts from that area that
mm.
stemmed from the slave trade actually coming in.
Okay, so yeah, okay. I know Obia was a combination of a few things, like the Incans, the Mayans, and
But it actually comes from Africa, it comes from South Africa,
yeah,
and from basically around near Ethiopia, Fan, and Benin.
right, right. And a lot of the so-called zombies and stuff really are a part of Obia, not voodoo so much, but yeah,
No, they're more of Obeah
yeah.
than the
It's the
voodoo.
zombie and the zombies. They are figures of that, and some of them are scary as shit, but because that's what they study and what they do, and they don't think about it. They just do. They react.
Right.
And
I have the advantage of one other thing going behind me here. I'm a Santeray Babalao.
oh, that's good.
So I'm very familiar with some of the practices.
They're not, but yeah, Obia is nothing like Santeria.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying I'm familiar
Yeah,
with the practices because of being
yeah.
a Santeray and Babalao and studying
Obia
it.
is more along the lines of, or closer to voodoo, similar to the laws and all of that. And I've done a bit of studies behind that on Obia. I mean, on voodoo.
Yeah, and there, there's a discussion that's been floating around right now of people wanting to get into voodoo to learn it, and it's like, well, that's kind of a practice that people who were born into it, raised up into it, and were taught by generations, is not something that, I mean, it's not like your typical witchcraft practice. Voodoo is a whole different ballgame, and that is something that not.
You
It's
can
not
you
something.
can it's not something you can get in just lightly. But
Right,
you can
right.
still pay your way into it via, that's how they see it. They've turned it, I think of voodoo as similar to um I think of it in the sense of a lot of people, unfortunately, they think of it as this secret society, and they have a tendency to cast a certain amount of money or cost based on what they can teach you with it. And you can't go through anybody but me and my money, and that, it's this whole thing, and
Yeah,
that's not the way it was meant to be. Um, so you can buy your way in with voodoo, but you cannot do that with Obia. You
right.
just can't. They won't. Yeah, they're not doing that. They're not teaching it to you like that. Not happening.
Nope, nope, that's for sure. All right. Well, the last few minutes here, I just want to go around and say thank you for joining us, Star.
No worries.
I know this was last minute because we both came up with this last night. It's like we really needed to get back to doing the roundtable discussion. So I do appreciate you taking time out to come join us. And we are going to be getting back to doing a weekly roundtable. Uh, so we're going to have a lot more interesting discussions coming up.
All righty. Thank you for inviting me again.
You are
Well,
very welcome.
we're
Ed, you got
always
any final
happy to have
words?
you. Always happy to have you there.
All right. Any final words from you there, Ed?
Uh, just a reminder, guys, do your homework. Don't just sit there and buy everything at face value. Research. Understand what you're learning. And if you have questions, ask an elder. That's what we're here for. If we don't
Exactly.
know the answer, we will find the answer for you. Or direct you to someone who can.
And
I think
I think
think
Star would
Star would
also,
agree
yeah,
with
I think Star would also agree with us on that point
Yes.
exactly. That
Yes.
if you're wanting to learn more, pick up a book, come talk to the elders, come talk to us if you want, and we are more than happy to sit down and talk with you. And just as Ed said, if we don't have all the answers, we know who we can get a hold of to get those answers from.
All right.
So it's always a learning experience, and that's what we just want to convey the best possible information and get people started off in the right foot.
Absolutely.
All right. With that being said, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And again, we're going to be doing this on a weekly basis right here at PRC and IAPN on each and every Saturday evening, 7 o'clock Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. And for those of you who would like to come join us, feel free to message either one of us, and we'll get you set up. So, in the meantime, I'm going to say pleasant journeys, everyone, and blessed be, and we will see you again next Saturday night.
Thank you.